It's the Mike Missanelli podcast on the BetRivers Network.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Mike Missanelli podcast. We're closing out the week with podcast episode number 107, Friday, September 1st. College football weekend. We'll speak to that in a little bit. Of course, our podcast brought to us by BetRivers. And coming up a little bit in the podcast, an interview with new Sixers assistant coach and former Villanova all-timer Doug West will join us in the podcast today. So let's start. Obviously, we got to start with the Eagles. This is the longest week ever between the third and last preseason game to when the season starts, and like burning up these days is ridiculous until they get to the New England Patriots on a Sunday at 4:25. Here's what's going on now. Whoopee! The Eagles filled out their practice squad. Oh, this has been a major point of contention. They signed 13 quick players to their practice squad and then just added 3 more. And in case you're interested, here's the last 3 guys they've added to get to their 16 on the practice squad. Defensive tackle Thomas Booker, who was a fifth-round draft pick last year by the Texans. Tackle DeRaven Clark, former third-round pick in 2016. 8-year veteran, played with the Eagles in 2021. And cornerback Tywan Mullen, undrafted free agent, played with the Chargers last year in the preseason. There you go. You're excited, I know. However, here is the big news. They are auditioning punters to perhaps replace Siposs. He's on the practice squad, so he might wind up being the punter. But one of the punters that they're auditioning right now is a Penn State all-timer, Blake Gillikin, who was a great college punter, punted for the Saints last year. And I am predicting that Blake Gillikin wins the battle and becomes the Eagles punter to give the Penn State, like lost their Nittany Lion flavor with the running back Miles Sanders going. And so they replace him with a punter. I take what I can get here. All right. So we got to wait a few days. We got Eagle football coming. We'll be doing a podcast after every Eagles game. That's where our podcast schedule will change, just as a personal note. So we'll get it Monday morning most of the time, except like Friday morning when they play the second game, which is on a Thursday. All right, so check your schedule, and you can determine when we'll be doing our podcast. All right, so that's the first part of what we call the current on the Mike Missanelli podcast. So let's go to the second part, the Phillies. Okay, they are 5 games up on the wild card berth. They're a lock. The odds, I think, are 93% that they're going to make the wild card spot. So no worries about them making the slot. They are 3 up on the second place Cubs. So they're really not that much in danger of losing that first wild card spot, which means they will play in the first round, 3-game series at home, if 3 is necessary, against the Chicago Cubs, who they're much better than. So I don't have any worries at all about that series. Now, last year I had some worries about the Cardinals, where the Phillies wound up winning that first game in dramatic fashion and then just took the Cardinals apart and took their hearts. And that was a springboard, of course, of them beating the Braves. So keep in mind that they will face the Braves again in the second round of these playoffs once they beat the Cubs. The Braves are better. I'm telling you right now, they're better. That does not mean the Phillies can't beat them. The only situation here is the Braves have home field advantage, so hopefully the Phillies can split down there and turn that series back in their favor. Okay, now, they lost the third game of a 3-game set to the Angels, a team that stinks. A team put like 6 guys on waivers and then sent them out to play because they weren't going to be part of the team after the game. It's weird about baseball. But anyway, the Phillies have it deadlocked with another dramatic Bryce Harper moment where he hits the home run in the 8th inning to put him in the lead. And it was his home run number 300. This guy's got a flair for drama. So they go into the 9th inning with that lead and trying to protect it, and Craig Kimbrell gives it up. Now, I just gave you the positive spin about the Phillies. They're going to be in the wild card. They could beat the Braves. They could get to the World Series again. But I have to mention this because the question is, do they have a Kimbrell problem? And the answer to that is yes, they do. They have a Kimbrell problem. He looks like he's a little worn out. In fact, the back end of the bullpen looks a little worn out. You don't know what you're going to get from him anymore. Dominguez and Soto and of course Alvarado, who hopefully is healthy, but you never know about that. So yes, they have a late inning problem with the Phillies, and I hope that doesn't cut their legs off when they play the Braves because they're going to need to get ahead and they're going to need to preserve that lead with some really good back end bullpen pitching in that second round. So let's get back to Bryce Harper because is Bryce. I hate to even do this now because he's so beloved in this city, and people are just eating this up. But
I know what you're gonna do, man. I
he
know it.
yeah, he knows what the perception is right now because here's what he said after the game about being a Philly. He's in love with being a Philly, right? So he says, I'll get the whole quote out here to see what he says. He says he just loves playing in Philadelphia, and he says a lot of people think that I pander, but it's real. It's so real. It's from the bottom of my heart, and I'm just thankful to put this jersey on every day. Now, fans just suck that up, but cynics like me go, I don't know. Are you trying too hard? Darren, let me bring you in for this. I know you're having some conversations with your friends. Is Bryce Harper trying too hard, or is this just completely genuine?
Every one of my buddies thinks that he's pandering. Like every one of them, to the point where they're almost killing him for it. I think he means it. I really think he's genuine. You know what would be great? You say you're a cynic. For those who don't realize, I was your producer with Steve Fredericks. What would Steve be doing right now? He'd be going, "Oh, this is bullshit. This pandering, this pandering son of a." He was so cynical.
Yeah, he might. So the full quote is, I just love being a Philly, plain and simple. This fan base, this city, I love them. Everybody thinks I pander a lot, but it's real. All right, well, whatever, man.
I kind of think it's real, but yeah,
Yeah,
everybody I know thinks
listen.
it's just way too much.
I'm going to say that it's my problem because I'm such a cynic that athletes, to me, when they say stuff like that, I think they're just trying too hard. But then the other side of it is you don't try hard enough. So I can't be satisfied, which makes me the idiot. All right, but let's discuss the reality of this because I believe now that he has surged to the top of the most beloved Philly athletes of all time. His flair for the dramatic, the way he plays, the hard nosed thing about him, the way he tributes the fans all the time. He's at the well. Let's okay. Let me amend that because he's the second most. All right, he's the second most beloved because no one in the history of this city will surpass Chase Utley, and the other guy they might not ever surpass is Nick Foles. Okay, so the most beloved athletes in Philly, for my money, go like this. It goes Utley, Chase Utley. I don't know. He could have robbed a bank at noon and would still be the most popular player ever in Philadelphia. So it goes for me: Utley, Harper, Foles, and then I go AI, and then Brian Dawkins. They are, in my study, the most popular athletes of all time. Am I leaving anybody out, Darren?
I think you have Foles way too high. I think Iverson.
Well, of course it's too high. He shouldn't even be on the damn list. But I am telling you, I am measuring how fans love somebody. And there's nobody that's more loved. Utley is, Harper is, but nobody else, not even Dawkins is more beloved than Foles. Foles is the quarterback that got him their first Super Bowl.
I think Dawkins, even though he didn't technically win.
Dawkins didn't win the Super Bowl. This guy won a Super Bowl.
Mike, I know.
He's beloved.
I just think Dawkins is still worshipped more than
got a statue.
No statue. I mean, it's Bobby Clark.
And you notice, listen, here's how weird Philadelphia is. Because Julius Erving's not on my top 5 list.
I know. And he damn well should be.
All right? So there you go. All right. Let's move on to college football because college football, big weekend. It started last night. Were a couple games. Interesting. Minnesota wins. Nebraska stinks, and poor Matt Rule is gonna take a while to build that program. And then Utah with a big win last night. So let's look at college football, and in particular Penn State, because this is the year that a lot of Penn State fans, or even non-Penn State fans, think that they can actually make a run to that Final Four. Here's what I think. I'm very cynical about Penn State. First of all, let's go down the percentages of the college football programs by percentage that are supposed to be in the Final Four. Georgia has 68.4% chance to be in the Final Four. Alabama, 53.0. Ohio State, 49.6. Michigan, 46.6. And the next place is Penn State at only 19.7%. So what I'm saying is that Penn State might have to actually run the table to get into the Final Four. Now, let's look at their schedule here because I'm going to this is embarrassing for me as a Penn Stater that they have these two teams on the schedule in the first 6 games where they will undoubtedly go 6-0 until they get to the big one. So they start out with West Virginia, 20-point favorite over them. Should not have a problem with them. I'm thinking of making that one of my betting plays for the week, which I'll give you in a second. Then Delaware. Oh, they played Delaware the second game of the year. That's embarrassing for me. I got to be honest with you. All right, the third game is at Illinois. Shouldn't have any problems there. Then Iowa at home. That shouldn't be a problem. And then at Northwestern, which shouldn't be a problem. That's 5-0. And then the sixth game is UMass. All right, so Delaware and UMass in the first 6 games, if they don't go 6-0, I disown them. I take my diploma and I light it on fire live on this podcast. So they're 6-0, and here it comes at Ohio State. Now, here's what I think is going to happen. Ohio State is not going to be as potent because of the quarterback factor. They have always had a quarterback who has been able to carry them through. This is a year where they don't. Now, with all due respect to the local kid, Kyle McCord from St. Joe Prep has been named the starter. By then, I don't know if he'll be the starter. The other kid can really throw the ball. I've seen that kid Brown. But even if he does, he's not as dynamic as the past, like the JT Barretts in the Fields and all these guys. So I think Penn State wins that game at Ohio State. I think they'll be riding a high. And then they play Indiana and at Maryland. Okay, now let's do the math. What is that? That's 9-0.
Yeah, 9.
And guess what? Here come the Michigan Wolverines to Penn State, and it undoubtedly will be a whiteout game. And I think Penn State will lose that game. All right, Michigan has Penn State won the last 2 against Michigan?
Has it been?
I think they've won the last 2.
Yeah.
So this is like triple revenge. Michigan is a good team. But here's what's going to happen. Michigan will then have to play Ohio State, and they will lose to Ohio State, which puts Penn State back in the picture. And then you just have to extrapolate the data to see if Penn State survives into that Final Four.
Where's that Ohio State-Michigan game?
The Ohio State-Michigan game is, I believe, 2 after Penn State plays Michigan. So Michigan plays somebody after that, and then they play Ohio State.
Is it in Ohio State or is it in Michigan?
It's I don't know.
Okay.
It doesn't matter to me. Ohio State will rebound and win that game because Michigan will be riding that kind of. Michigan's not going to run the table either. So there you go. That's the way I think they get back in. All right, let's look at some games you might be able to play on your BetRivers app. Of course, you got to download that BetRivers. It's a perfect time to do it. You get the NFL and college football. You got to get the app. You pop it up all the time. You get some bargains, right? I'm looking for bargains, and it's hard to find bargains in the first week of the year. So let me go with this here. Prime time. Coach Prime is going into his first game. He's going to TCU. He will get his ass handed to him at TCU. They're giving Coach Prime some credit by making TCU only a 21.5-point favorite. TCU rolls in that game. They win something like 51-15 or something like that. And Coach Prime gets indoctrinated with a big L right out of the chute. I love TCU in that game. All right, that's the other surprise team in the fragmenting Pac-12. The one escapee plays against Boise State. Always a challenge for somebody to beat Boise State. And yet, the Washington Huskies are a 14.5-point favorite at home. And I'm going to ride the Huskies with a monster win over Boise State because normally people look at that and go, Boise State, they're good. I'm going to take the 14.5. Not me. I'm too wise to fall into a trap like that. I'll take the Huskies. All right. And then here's the thing I think is the bargain of the week. UNC's got this big-time quarterback, the University of North Carolina. but they always manage to play down. And so they're a slight favorite at home against South Carolina. Are you ready for this? The Gamecocks outright. Getting 2.5, won't need it. They win the game in Chapel Hill. All right.
Love
So
it.
there you go. They're my selections for the opening week of college football. We haven't touched on the Sixers, so let's touch on them. There's nothing going on with them. There's no excitement for the Sixers. Every fan of the Sixers is programmed to think they're going to have a down year, and James Harden's still out there in limbo. And now, here comes the propaganda. Now, James Harden has agents. I'm guaranteeing you, his agents are putting it in the ear of former teammates. Hey, throw it out there that James is a good dude, that he's a really good teammate who only wants to win. And the latest guy to be snared with that hook with a worm on it is none other than a guy named Sam Decker. And if you remember Sam Decker, about a 6'8", 6'9", white forward, played at Wisconsin. Good player, very good player. Had some hops, played in the league for a little bit, and now he's working for the NBA at some form. And he says that James was a great teammate when he was playing with him with the Houston Rockets. Here's the thing about Sam Decker that stands out for me. He is married to Olivia Harlan. Kevin Harlan, the football announcer, he's a good announcer. I like Kevin Harlan. His daughter, Olivia, is a very lovely lady, and she is actually in the business. And Sam snared Olivia Harlan. So I give Sam a thumbs up for that selection. Good job by Sam Decker. So just concentrate on Olivia and take James Harden out your mouth. All right? Just take him out your mouth.
It's the Mike Missanelli Podcast on the BetRivers Network.
All right, Doug, the Philadelphia 76ers in a kind of a precarious situation. If Harden does not show up, or if he does show up, there's that frame of reference the Sixers had gone through a couple years ago with Ben Simmons where he showed up and he didn't want to show up. And through the whole start of the season, really, it put it in flux. So, I know. How are you guys going to deal with that kind of thing? Because most concerning thing about that is how it affects the locker room. When guys are feeling uncertain about the direction of the team, it affects them as well.
Yeah, well, that's like you said, that's the elephant in the room. We have to get to that point. We still have another month until training camp starts, and like I said, hopefully they get everything finalized and taken care of by then.
All right, let's look back at your great career. And I was covering college basketball for the Inquirer in your era. And first of all, Altoona High, Parade All-American, and you come to Villanova the year after they win the national championship. I assume you had signed earlier than that, and a ton of schools were after you. Why was it Villanova at the time?
Well, honestly, I mean, it came down to Villanova and Pitt. I actually thought I was going to Pitt. It's really funny, you think back to 1984, my first flight ever was to Philadelphia on my trip at Villanova. And I remember landing in the city, making that drive out to the main line and just falling in love with the campus. And then I think the biggest thing for me back then was Coach Mass sitting in his office and him telling me, I don't think you can play for me. And it was just that challenge. It was like, oh, you don't think I can play for you? And then I just had such a great relationship, or I built a great relationship with the players that were on the team. Even though some of them were graduating, to this day, I'm still friends with a lot of those guys.
So what was he doing? Playing a psychological game on you?
Oh, that's what he did. That was Coach Mass. That was him 100%.
Doug, you stayed 4 years at Villanova, and very rare, and carved out a great career. Were you thinking of jumping to the NBA any earlier?
It crossed my mind my junior season after we lost in the Elite Eight. We lost to Oklahoma, and it crossed my mind then. But we, had a very good nucleus coming back the following year. I think we were preseason number 7 in the country and ended up in the NIT. So it just didn't work out the way I thought it would. But again, I got drafted and was able to go on and have a nice career in the league.
Yeah, you certainly did. So let's talk about the game that I covered the game. It was one of the most fascinating games I have ever seen. It may be the best game in Big Five history, if not one of the great college games of all time. Temple's ranked number 1. You guys are top 10, I believe, at McGonigal Hall. And wow. I mean, an incredible game. You guys, they wind up at the end. They made few more plays than you guys, and they win 98-86 in a game that went up and down like I've never seen a game, which is unusual in that you two coaches were control type coaches. So take me back to that great Temple Villanova game at McGonigal Hall and what you experienced in that game. You had 25, I guess. Or 27.
Okay.
Yeah, you had 27. Kenny Wilson at 25 and 9.
Yeah. It's really funny when you said the score was 98-86. I mean, and you're so right. I mean, Coach Mass, every play down the court, Coach Chaney, every play down the court, they wanted to coach it. But that atmosphere of that game, the in McGonigal Hall, I mean, it was a small box. I mean, standing room only. And I can remember it vividly. I think they got ranked number 1 that morning. And it was an opportunity to go in there. I mean, you got Howie Evans, you got Vrieswick, you got Mark Macon, you got Tim Perry, you got, Ramon Ray. I mean, you had the team. I mean, and it was just up and down. I think we came out a little hot. But they ran their zone, were able to, win the game down the stretch. It was just a fun game for the fans, for the alums, for the city.
Yeah, up and down, which is you guys only played 6. So I back in the day, I got a couple minutes, but basically both teams played 6. Plansky, Rodney Taylor, Grice, Kenny Wilson, and you in the backcourt. They played Vrieswick, Perry, Rivas, Macon, Evans, and Dwayne Coswell for a little bit off the bench. And that pace with like 6 guys just up and down, it never affected anybody. Macon goes for 31 in that game. Were you guarding him at that point?
I would never take that. I would never say I was guarding him. But I'm sure he gave me some, just like he gave everyone else some. Mark was an outstanding player. I think that was his freshman year as well.
Yeah, it was his freshman year where he was a freshman sensation. And that night, he had trouble with shot selection. He made everything that night. But you guys shot like 54% in that game. It was something that guy had never seen. It was a game that I totally did not expect to score at that level. And afterward, I remember Massimino saying, this is one game I didn't mind losing because it was such an wildly entertaining game. And I went, oh, my God, he said that? Because he never say that.
Yeah, that definitely didn't sound like Coach. I mean, it was an entertaining game. I remember McGonigal always being one of those shooters' courts. It was just that box, the baskets on the wall there. It was just one of those places where you felt like it was a home court.
It was suffocating in that building. That night.
Definitely no air conditioning.
It was standing room only. There people were standing on that balcony they had beyond the basket. Yeah, it was an incredible game. Chaney here's what I remember about Chaney after the game. And I covered Chaney for a lot of years, and I had great respect for him. And so he's on the podium with Howie Evans, and Howie had 20 points and 20 assists and 1 turnover. And so some reporter says Howie had 20 and 1 turnover, and Chaney turned to him and said, "How the fuck you have 1 turnover, Howie?" which is classic Chaney.
Throw the F-bomb out there in the meeting there, huh?
It was amazing that he did that. All right, so your Villanova career, it's a great career, and you're the top 5 scorer of all time. That's some pretty haughty territory there, the top 5. I want to ask you, if I put you on the all-time Villanova team, who are your other 4?
Oh, if you put me on the all-time, okay, so we'll go with Ed Pinckney. Oh man, this is a really good one. We can go Brunson.
Okay, you'll put Brunson on there.
We're going to go Brunson and Lowry. I'm going to play the small forward.
Okay. All right.
We're going to play the small forward. And who we're going to go with our 4-man? Wow, that's Tim Thomas.
Okay. That's pretty good one. You're leaving out Kerry Kittles
Oh,
now.
there's a lot I'm leaving out. I mean, there's
Yeah.
names. I mean, there's no way you can turn. I'm going to get some calls from this. I'm sure eventually. It's going to be like, oh, I'm not on your top.
All right, Doug. So you get drafted after that season. You get drafted by the T-Wolves, and you start writing. It's a new franchise, and you're playing very well with the T-Wolves. So your transition from college to NBA, what was that like? Because then you guys start adding some really good players to the draft with that team.
It was interesting. My first year, I played it here and there. I really couldn't figure out. Bill Musselman was my first coach. He was a character in himself. Couldn't figure out, where I was fitting in here. And then along comes my second year. Along comes Scotty Brooks, and Scotty Brooks and I just started being terrorizing on defense, on the defensive end. Next thing you know, I'm getting opportunities. Next thing you know, I'm getting more time, and then before you know it, I'm re-signing, for my second contract, and then able to get my third. So it was one of those situations where coming up, I got my time on the court through the defensive end, and then established myself as a scorer for a little while in the league, and then as you said, the talent just started rolling in.
Yeah, I was going to say, where were you more comfortable, at the 2 or the 3? Because then they draft J.R. Ryder, who was more of a 2, and then KG comes along. So did you have to make that transition from 2 to 3 in the NBA?
Yes, definitely. Once Jay came in, he was a special talent. So I ended up playing some 2 and 3. I actually, throughout my NBA career, I played 1, 2, and 3. So I was able to touch all 3 positions of the guard spots. And it was just a great ride, a lot of losing. Timberwolves weren't known for winning. So there was a lot of losing within that organization. But I think I grew as a person, and you start learning a lot about yourself.
At that time, I know looking back is you played against so many players, but who was the toughest player that you had to play against personally?
Well, besides Jordan, because
I was just going to ask you, were you responsible for guarding him?
Oh yeah, that was my matchup. Yes,
that was your guy.
Yeah, that was my guy. And every time we played them at home, I always said no dunks for Mike. So he would get a breakaway, I would grab him. My fans would boo me. So that's because they wanted to see him. But besides Mike, Reggie Miller, a guy like Reggie Miller who just never stopped moving. Luckily we only played them twice a year because he was in the Eastern Conference. But then you would go right up to Utah. You had a Jeff Hornacek, a Jeff Malone, a Mitch Richmond. I mean, you name them. I had some of the better 2 guards to cover in the NBA.
All right, so tell me a Mike trash talking story, because he was notorious for it. You were guarding him. There had to be some transactions there with you guys, right?
Yeah, well, the biggest one, and it's on the "Come Fly With Me" video that he has when he shakes me, goes baseline, and dunks on Sam Mitchell. And then we're coming out of the locker room at halftime, and he looked at me and he said, "I thought you knew my plays. I thought you knew which way I was going to go." And I said, "I had that one." He said, "We should have told Sam you had it because he got it." So
that's amazing stuff. Okay, so the career now at the end gets to Vancouver. What was that like, and when did you think that it was coming to an end for you in the NBA?
Well, the Vancouver situation, I got traded there. Again, another team that was a rebuilding team. I broke my foot, tore my sesamoid. Then I ended up with very bad plantar fasciitis. Back in 1999, 2000, 2001, plantar fasciitis was, it was one of those ones where you get up in the morning, you crawl to the bathroom, and by the time practice is there, you're able to play. So eventually I was like, I don't think I can do this anymore. I can't deal with my body feeling the way it is. And, had a long talk with Stu Jackson, and that was it. I finished playing up in 2001.
What was post NBA life like for you? For you, what?
Oh, well,
are you comfortable talking about some things that happened to you after your career?
I don't think many, things happened after my career. Some things happened during my career. Yeah. So, after my career, I got into coaching, had kids, was married at that point. So things, I thought things were great. But I still had that bug, that coaching bug, and I got into coaching.
Yeah, and you were all over the place. You coached at lower levels and higher levels. And you coached the Westtown girls team most recently, right?
Yes.
So I guess you're never too big to learn things to coach at any level.
Yeah, well, one of the things that it was really interesting. I went and I was a Division III college coach at Penn State Altoona. This was after my father had passed, and this is after I was with Nick. Went back there, coached that team, and then while I had taken over my local high school, the team that I played, Altoona High, I took over that team for 3 years. And in the meantime, doing that, I was brought back into Philadelphia to coach with the Philly Bells AAU program. On the girls' side. So that's how I got really into the girls' basketball. And then, as I was wanting to come back to Philadelphia, the position at Westtown opened up. A good friend of mine called me up. We took that, and that team's going to be special for a while. That school has some very young players from the area, very good players.
Talking to Doug West. Doug, last thing. The Sixer fans, I think, are looking for some kind of a change where Nick Nurse can maximize what this team is about to get them past this hurdle that they can't seem to get past. What can you tell us about the coaching style that we will look forward to, that this team will do differently and more efficiently?
I think moving the ball and moving our bodies. The ball spacing, getting guys in situations where they have advantages. A little more up tempo. And I think the defensive side of the ball will be the biggest change. I think. Coach is really big on defense. Really big on switching and doing a lot of other things. Really, disguising defenses and doing things of that nature. So it should be interesting.
Yeah, and that's why I asked you the question, because you have a center. Looking at Nick's teams, he likes the long, athletic guys who can switch and get out. And you've got a center now who isn't that type of player. So how will you try to evolve that?
Well, I mean, I'm not going to say that he's not that type of player. I mean, I've seen him do things. I think if when guys want to win and they're putting everything into it, they're willing to do some things and get out of their comfort zone. And hopefully he gets out of his comfort zone.
All right. So if Harden comes back, he's going to get out of his comfort zone.
Hey, it's a team. It's a team thing.
He's going to have to move and cut and do all that kind of stuff, and I haven't seen that yet from him.
Hey, like I said, we'll have to see when he gets here.
All right, Doug, listen, it's a pleasure to touch base with you. Thanks a lot. We'll look forward to seeing you during the season. Best of luck. And when do you guys get started? When's camp open?
Camp opens October 2nd. So,
in the meantime, what are you doing? You going through all kinds of configurations, strategical meetings and things like that?
Meetings, players getting in for workouts, things of that nature. Building our brand up. Trying to get them used to us used to them. So, like I said, we've had good runs out in California. Had some guys out there, some good workouts out there. It was a fun time. It was a fun August. A lot of ball.
2 days ago, Ben Simmons said he wouldn't mind being traded back to Philadelphia.
I saw that. I thought it was a joke. I just thought it was a joke. I really did. I saw it, and I haven't seen anything else from him, so I thought it was a joke. So
he said he loves Philly.
Oh, I'm sure he does. I mean, hey, one of the things you always got to say to players and everyone here, you got to love the situation. The fans love it. You just got to go out and play your tail off. Just leave it out there on the court every day. It's all the fans want. They want you to go out there, play your tails off, and enjoy living in the city.
Have you stayed in contact with the guys you play with, the Planskys, the Grices, the Kenny Wilson? What's Kenny Wilson doing right now?
I have not talked to Kenny in a while. I know that he was in New Jersey. I'm not sure what he's doing, but Plansky, I've talked to him. Grice, Grice is a comedian now. He has stand-up.
I did not know that. He's a comedian.
Yes, he has a stand-up. He has a stand-up platform now, so that's what he's doing.
Does he build himself the world's tallest comedian? Is that his billing?
Yeah, and one of the things both Coach Wright and Coach Neptune have done is they've been able to keep the alums involved. Yeah. And every year we've had a golf outing at the end of July, and majority of the guys come back all the way back into the 70s. You have guys coming back, play a little golf in the afternoon, watch a little basketball in the evening, and then we just get together and shoot the shit.
Did you ever talk to Jay about being an NBA coach?
I just don't think he wanted to do that. I thought he may, but it looks like he's enjoying the television thing now, and I'm sure he's hanging at the beach right now. So,
He's making $1 zillion without being an NBA coach, so I guess he isn't interested.
Right? I mean, seriously. I mean, you're undefeated. You're undefeated every day, so.
Yes, you are. Doug, thanks, man. Thanks for coming on. We appreciate it. The great Doug West, Villanova's fifth all-time leading scorer. He's on my all-time Villanova team.
Well, I appreciate that.
I have to put that other one together later today. Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Everybody have a great weekend. And as we get into football season, I can't wait to give you that first podcast following the Eagles' first win, where they go in and blast Bill Belichick. Have a great rest of the weekend, everybody, and we will talk to you next week on the Mike Missanelli Podcast. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the Mike Missanelli Podcast on the BetRivers Network.